Hello and welcome to another episode of 1000 Actually Fun Books, where we review books of every genre looking for the best of fun escapist books. Today I am doing Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. This is a standalone fantasy book with some mystery and a touch of romance. So our plot is, it kind of is inspired by Snow White, although Snow White is not the main character. We have Snow White as the daughter of a king, and the mother has recently died. We'll call it, yeah, we'll just say the mother has recently died. I won't go into the circumstances. And Snow White is having lots of symptoms as if she's being poisoned, and nobody knows what's going on with that. So the king comes to our main character and says to our main character, "You are an expert on poisons. Come fix my daughter." And by the way, as bright green the pages, the edges are brushed bright green. It's really appropriate for the poisoned apple look. Anyway, so you have Snow, the princess, our main character. I want to say her name is pronounced Aja or something like that, but we'll just call her Healer, the poison healer. So she comes to where the princess is and starts investigating. So, the story is a little bit of mystery on what's going on with the princess and all the backstory of what's related to that. There is magic involved, which I will give a little bit when I talk about that in a moment, mostly because the summary of the story gives you hints that there's going to be magic and what it is, so it's not really going to be spoilers. I won't give the ending away or anything. Anyway, it's mostly our healer kind of learning about her, what made her specialty be in poisons, and her trying to do all sorts of things, kind of scientific method to try and figure out where the poison is coming from. You know, is it the dishes? Is it the makeup? Is it the food she's eating? What is it that's causing her to be sick? Okay, so let's get on to things that I liked. So I liked quite a bit about this. Let's start with the plot in general. I did think that there are some things about it that were predictable, but there were definitely things that by the end I'm like, I didn't see that coming, which I liked. So I liked our plot. It was, the pacing was fantastic, despite the fact that we don't actually get to see any magic or even meet Snow, our Snow White character, for over 100 pages into the book. It didn't feel slow getting up to that point. It felt like it was a good pace throughout the entire book, with a very adrenaline rush, climactic ending, fight, escape type of thing. But up until that point, there really wasn't much what I would consider action, but it still was very much, it drew your attention in. I really wanted to keep going back to the book to find out what happened next. I liked that. Our world building in this was amazing. I really liked it. So there's world building outside of, we'll call it the magical realm. So for example, this takes place in a medieval culture. Nothing familiar, it's definitely an alternate universe, but a medieval in that you talk about, when we're talking about medicine, people talk about their humors and their phlegm, the different phlegms and the different systems of the body that have nothing to do with our current knowledge of medicine. Instead, it's more like what Aristotle would come up with, the humor of the tranquility and melancholy and, that kind of thing of the body. And it needs to be balanced, and you need to, bleed somebody in order to get it balanced, or whatever it is that they have to do, right? It's medicine like that. But they go into it a lot more in an interesting way, because our person obsessed with poisons and antidotes to poisons talks about that a lot. Oh, for example, right at the beginning, when she's talking about a poison, hemlock, which is why the book is called Hemlock, is one of the poisons. And she's like, okay, hemlock is a root and it's white, and so the opposite of that should be its cure. So we need something black and maybe a flower, because a root and a flower are opposite. Or maybe we need something that's from an animal instead of a vegetable, and it needs to be, warm instead of cold, or, big instead of small, that kind of idea of how they went about looking for antidotes to poison. And how she went about testing these types of things on roosters. And, it's very interesting. I really liked that touch of historical relevance to that, like how people actually thought about how the body worked and how it would react to bad things, whether it's sicknesses or poisons or whatever it may be. There's a lot of discussion about that in this book. And it looks like the author did a lot of research into some of the poisons and stuff, because she also talks about venoms, snake bites and spider bites and scorpions and more and more and more. And it's just very fascinating. Even if the author didn't do actual research and just made it all up, it was still really interesting reading about. So I liked that. I liked the poison aspect of this book. It was just very fascinating. Coming back to our world building. Okay, the magic system. It's really kind of this vague magic system dealing with mirrors. And this, even though it doesn't come up until later, and our main character has to discover this, it's really not a spoiler, because again, if you read the excerpt from the book, it talks about magic mirrors. But mirrors are really the main magic in this book. It seems like the wider world might have more magic, but that's really the focus here. And I liked the way the entire system is built up, and especially talking about consequences. So in this book, mirrors could lead to, we'll call it an alternate dimension. And they talk about the fact that a mirror, like if you could travel into this alternate universe and all you need is a mirror to travel out, the idea of size really wouldn't make a difference, because mirrors, let's say you had a mirror the size of a coin, a small coin, right? It's just sitting on, I don't know, a tile in a bathroom or something like that. And you wanted to get through it. Well, you would look at that and go, obviously I cannot fit myself through this little itty bitty coin-sized mirror. But all you have to do is, through that coin-sized mirror, put a long, thin mirror. Go all the way through it, right? Now you have a long, thin mirror. Well, obviously you can't fit through that. But then you could fit up through that long, thin mirror a sheet of mirror, and suddenly you could walk through the mirror. And the consequences of that would be quite dramatic in a world, right? So talking about how this works and all the consequences, like the real world consequences of if something like that were real, was really fascinating. It was good world building in lots of respects about how this worked, why it would be dangerous or whatever. There's also other things going on in the Mirrorverse that I'm not going to talk about, and how they relate to the real world again, or how different things create consequences in the mirror world and what happens to that. And there's a lot of variety going on here about this magical world. And I loved the rule building that it followed, and the world building. It was very different, very fascinating. I liked it a lot. Okay, our main character. I liked our main character. She was not perfect by any means. She was very awkward, socially awkward. I kind of related to that. So there's a socially awkward person that, in a social situation, she's like, I do not make small talk very well. And she will like blurt out, because she's obsessed with poisons and antidotes and everything that creates things that have venom or poison on them. And so she will want to talk about what interests her, and other people are like, no thanks, I really didn't want to know, or whatever. And it kind of frustrates her, because obviously this is what she's interested in and other people are clearly not. So she can be a little bit much for other people. And so I kind of liked that. I liked her personality. I liked the fact that not only is she socially awkward, but she's she really wants to be a problem solver. So this sick princess, she is not, as she calls herself, she's not a healer. She's not in it because she wants the person to feel better, although she does want that, but it's not really her motivation. It's a problem solving. And so she goes about it in a very methodical way. Again, kind of bringing up that scientific method, although it's never talked about like that. With, you try something, and if that doesn't work, you try something else, and if it does work, you try it a bunch of different ways to see what about it worked, that kind of idea. And so she goes about a lot of her problem solving in kind of that method. And again, I liked that. I liked her methodical approach to some of these things. So I like her personality. I liked her approach. I liked her a lot. There's a touch of romance in this. I tended to like her romantic partner, which I won't spoil about that, although, halfway through the book it's pretty obvious. And I liked the way the book approached it. There's zero explicit anything in this book, which I like. I liked it's not a big part of this book. Like the romance, it's occasionally more her thoughts of like, does he like me? Oh, he clearly does not like me. That kind of thing. And it just pops up here and there as they go about solving the mystery. And so I liked that. I liked the humor in this book. The humor was, both the tone was fairly lighthearted for what it was, for the most part. I'll get to a little bit of that later. But for the most part, the tone is really light and cheerful, and things are good, and there's a lot of humor sprinkled in throughout this. I really liked the sense of humor in this book. It made me chuckle a couple of times. So I always like books that have some humorous moments in them. And finally, I'll say the ending was good. It was a satisfying ending. This is not a book with a series. It's not leaving you on a cliffhanger. It wraps up everything very nicely. You feel like, that there really isn't, sure, you could have more stories in the universe, but nothing that's like needing to be there. So I liked the ending. It was very nice. There are just very small things that I'll say I dislike about this. One is there is a touch of creepy horror kind of thing, very limited amount in the Mirrorverse. I'm not going to go into details on that, but there are some things that can make some people kind of go, ugh, going on there. Right at the very beginning, to give you an example of something that's kind of could be nasty, is it talks about the queen cutting the heart out of one of her daughters. Again, that's about as much detail as you get, but that can be kind of revolting. You don't get to know any of the characters, so it's not a big deal, but it is there. And a little bit later, like I said, in the Mirrorverse, there's a little bit more creepier than that kind of things. But it's not a big deal. But it is there. Another thing I dislike, this is a pet peeve of mine, when an author addresses the reader. To me, it takes you right out of the story when the author is like, and let me tell you about this one thing, because you probably don't know about this one thing, dear reader. Or whatever it is, however they say it. But it's very much addressed to the reader. And I don't like it when books do that. It only happens like 4 times or something in this book, and it's very brief, and it's usually just like what I described. It is the author telling the reader about something that they wouldn't otherwise know. Maybe it's, about a poison or something, but it is addressed that way, and I think it could have been written without addressing the reader, and it would have been a lot better. I don't like that. My final thing is about the mystery going on. So since you already know that there's mirrors and stuff, basically from the beginning of the story, and because you kind of know the story of Snow White, some of the things that happen in the book, you're like, oh, that's the solution to that. That's what's going on with that. Like right away, you as the reader know. And it takes the character a lot longer to figure it out. Some of them are things that you're just like, this is obvious. You aren't thinking about this thing that has been brought up to you earlier in the story. It's right there in front of your face, and you don't get it. And so some of the mystery part can be feeling a little frustrating as a reader, because you're like, it's right there. Just think of this thing that some other character already told you. It's right in front of your face. Don't you? And it takes a while for the character to catch up. Now, that's not exclusively the entirety of the mystery. There are some surprises at the very end, but some big pieces of the mystery are clearly obvious. I think anybody reading it would be like, oh yeah, why haven't they figured that out yet? Kind of thing. So that's something that, I don't love about the story. Overall, though, I loved it. I had a great time. I really enjoyed reading it. I would want to read more from this author. I consider this an excellent book. I give it 2 thumbs up. I would definitely recommend it to somebody who likes fantasy, especially fantasy that's kind of tied to fairy tales. Definitely enjoyed it. So that's that, and thank you for watching. I hope you join me next week.